In the darkest days of World War II, courage was not an abstract concept but a daily necessity. My mother, a valiant member of the Dutch underground resistance, embodied this bravery and resilience. This is her story, a tribute to a hero who risked everything for freedom, hope, and humanity. My mother was born on December 5, 1922, in Henderlo, Holland. She grew up in a small farmhouse with her parents, 3 brothers, and a sister. Her father, Hendrik Elbertson, was the forest ranger for the Henderlo forest, and his dedication to service was recognized with numerous awards after the war. In her early 20s when World War II broke out, my mother became a member of the Dutch underground resistance. Mum was only 17 years old when the war broke out. Even over 70 years later, she was still haunted by the memories and images from that time. Asking Mum to open up and talk about those times was difficult for her, as her eyes would begin to tear up. She shared what she could, wanting the family to understand what she went through. She told me that after all these years, even with help, she is still haunted by the memories of the things that happened and the things she had to do. She lived with constant nightmares for her entire life. However, she did share some stories with happy endings to some degree, though many other stories are lost. She stated that the war brought both the best and the worst times of her life. You never knew if you would be alive or dead from one moment to the next. In her words,
"Although the war brings back many awful memories for me, there were a few good moments too. It makes you realize that, as badly as the Dutch were treated at the hands of the Germans, not all German soldiers were cruel and hateful."
The following video is broken down into various segments of her story. Realization of war. Mum the spy. Food stamp deliveries. Escort lady. The robber, shot by the SS. Bicycle stealing incident. Christmas supper. Concentration camp. Tribute to her dad Hendrik Elbertson. Conclusions. The following is a short story that brought the stark reality of war into my mum's life, forever leaving an indelible mark on her heart and mind. Mum shared a poignant story of a young German soldier who sacrificed his life to save her and her friend. Despite the many horrors of war, this selfless act of bravery stood out as a reminder that compassion can be found even in the darkest of times.
"We were walking along the roadside, just by a group of German soldiers, when an Allied fighter plane came down and started shooting. Along the roadside were pits dug into the ground, used for shelter in such situations. Mum and her friend dove into a pit for cover to avoid being shot. Just as the plane started firing, a young German soldier dove on top of the pit, shielding us with his body. The plane continued firing down the road. When it was gone, we were still alive, but the soldier was killed. He saved our lives. It was an extremely emotional time. Looking back, I wish I knew who this brave man was so I could write to his mum and let her know what a courageous son she had."
The next section is about my mum's wartime experience of bravery, resilience, and the haunting consequences of her actions as a young spy. One of the major sins, as Mum puts it, is the fact that she was a spy, finding out and relaying information about Nazi/German movements. This was a crucial part of the resistance and had to be done to save the lives of her fellow countrymen and Allied soldiers. During the Nazi occupation, some of her lady friends were forced to work for the Germans as cleaning ladies, cooks, seamstresses, and more. These brave women would gather any useful information about German activities and pass it on to Mum. In turn, Mum would relay this information to the Dutch underground, who would then pass it on to the British. Shortly after, the British would target and bomb or destroy the areas based on the information Mum provided. Though this intelligence work undoubtedly saved numerous lives, it also became her worst nightmare. Mum had to live with the haunting reality that her actions, while necessary, contributed to the deaths of many German soldiers with families just like hers. This duality of saving lives while causing deaths weighed heavily on her heart. 70 years later, she is still haunted by the vivid memories of the destruction and the lives lost because of her actions. She often spoke of the constant tension and the moral struggles she faced during that time. The burden of knowing that her information led to bombings was a heavy one, and it left an indelible mark on her soul. Despite the help she received over the years, the nightmares never completely faded, and she continued to see in her mind's eye the devastating consequences of her wartime efforts. This was the harsh reality of war, a reality she has had to live with for the rest of her life. Mom was assigned to deliver food stamps to various locations hiding Allied soldiers and Jewish people. This was an extremely dangerous job, but it had to be done for the people in hiding to survive. If Mom were to get caught, she would have been interrogated to find the locations of the hiding spots and then most likely shot. To pull this off, she would pretend to be pregnant. Wearing a corset around her waist, full of food stamps, her baby, stamps provided by the Dutch underground, often forged or stolen, she would travel around town on her bicycle, shopping and visiting friends, or so it would appear. This required careful planning and coordination to avoid German patrols and checkpoints. Needless to say, she always had to have the baby with her at all times, otherwise, the German soldiers would become suspicious. This is where she met my dad, who was instructed to accompany her and pretend to be her husband. Dad played his role perfectly, ensuring that they appeared to be an ordinary couple going about their daily lives. Their shared mission created a bond that went beyond the facade they presented to the world. Every journey Mom took was fraught with danger. She had to maintain her composure and act naturally, even when her heart was pounding with fear. Each successful delivery brought relief, knowing that another group of people would survive a little longer because of her actions. Her bravery and determination were a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable danger. Mom's clever disguise and the support of her friends and dad were crucial in their efforts to outwit the German soldiers and keep the resistance alive. There came times when Allied soldiers in hiding needed to be relocated to another location in an attempt to return them to the Allied army. They needed a way to move without looking suspicious, and this is where Mom came into the picture. Mom's father, Opa Elbertson, and my dad's father, Opa Schut, frequently contacted each other when it was time to transport Jews or pilots from Apeldoorn to the bush in Henderle, 10 kilometers away. They both played vital roles in the relocation line, and both received awards and commendations, as shown in this video, from Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Tedder, President of the USA Dwight Eisenhower, Queen Juliana, and a handwritten letter from Prince Bernhard. Mom's job was to escort the soldier to the new location, with the Allied soldier pretending to be her husband. To make the disguise convincing, Mom and the soldier would dress in ordinary clothes and travel casually, often by bicycle or on foot. They had to blend in seamlessly with the everyday activities of the townspeople to avoid arousing suspicion from German patrols. Each relocation mission was fraught with danger. Mom had to maintain her composure and act naturally, even when her heart was pounding with fear. The stakes were incredibly high. If they were caught, it would mean severe punishment, interrogation, or even death. Despite the constant threat, Mom's dedication to the cause never wavered. She knew that each successful mission meant saving lives and contributing to the resistance efforts. Her bravery and resourcefulness were crucial in outwitting the German soldiers and keeping the underground network functioning. This is one of her stories.
During these relocations, the Allied soldier had to wear their complete uniform, covered only by a trench coat. Otherwise, if caught, we would be shot as spies. Riding our bicycles, pretending to be a couple with an expecting baby, the food stamps, we rode past a group of German soldiers. Just as we passed them, the Allied pilot's pant leg got caught in his bicycle chain. While attempting to free the pants, a young German soldier noticed what was happening and came over to investigate. At that point, I was scared stiff and decided to keep going, as this could have resulted in a terrible ending. The German soldier came over and offered to help the Allied pilot free his pant leg from the bicycle chain. Fortunately, the young German soldier did not recognize the Allied pilot's pants or boots, so this incident ended well. With the pant leg free, he caught up to me just down the road.
Mom undertook many of these relocations during the German occupation, but this particular relocation stood out the most, as it had a happy ending. Above is the story of Earl Price, one of the Allied airmen that Mom helped relocate. Please pause the video if you want to read his story. Mom was one of many brave ladies who undertook such dangerous tasks in relocating Jews and Allied soldiers. Some were not as lucky as our Mom was. The courage and sacrifice of these women played a crucial role in the resistance, and their stories deserve to be remembered and honored. During the war, when you are young, you don't realize the dangers you are dealing with. You get wrapped up in all the excitement. This story tells the time Mom robbed an ammunition depot and got caught in the act. This is Mom's story.
Prior to the war, in Hoenderloo, there were buildings that housed bad kids of all ages, sent there to learn trades like carpentry, electrical work, and plumbing. These children were relocated to make way for the German occupation. I was visiting a friend who was forced to work as a cleaning lady for the Germans. She and her friend discovered where everything was stored and told me that the Germans were keeping a large stockpile of guns and ammunition in the building. Knowing the Germans' daily routine, my friend left the window on the second floor, where the guns were, unlocked. Being very physically fit, I used the eave downpipe to climb up to the unlocked window. Once inside, I found the guns and ammunition and began throwing them out to her Dutch resistance friends below. Suddenly, I heard loud footsteps coming up the stairs. My heart pounded as I realized I had little time to escape. I shot out the window, climbed back down the downpipe, but lost my grip and fell into a rain barrel filled with extremely cold water. The German soldiers heard the splash, looked outside, and saw me struggling to get out of the rain barrel. Panic set in as I scrambled out and started to run into the woods as quickly as I could. They shot me in the right leg while trying to escape. As I was crawling away, they shot again, but luckily it was only a flesh wound. With the help of my friends waiting in the woods, I managed to reach safety.
At the end of World War II, as the German forces were retreating, many German soldiers and civilians found themselves in a desperate situation. With transportation options limited and the advancing Allied forces, some Germans resorted to using bicycles to flee the war zones. This chaotic period saw a mass exodus of Germans from Eastern and Central Europe, often referred to as the flight and expulsion of Germans. This is the story of the time Mom had an encounter with German soldiers attempting to steal her bicycle.
When the German soldiers were fleeing from the advancing Allied forces, they were grabbing everything they could to escape, horses, bicycles, you name it. They came to our place too. Jan, who was also part of the underground resistance, had bought me a beautiful bicycle with black market money. An old German soldier and a young soldier arrived. The old soldier demanded my bicycle, but I wasn't about to give it up. I grabbed a broom and started hitting him left and right. The young soldier, I'll never forget him, was long, tall, and handsome. He started laughing so hard that I think he peed himself. The old man eventually walked away without my bicycle. My mom and dad were yelling, "Give it to him, give it to him," but I stood my ground. Looking back, I find it quite funny. Even now, when I think about it, I laugh. I can still see that young fellow, tall and skinny boy. Was he handsome?
This a short story of an unexpected visitor during Christmas time.
It was Christmas evening, and we were just sitting down for our family Christmas dinner, everyone milling around the table, having a nice time. Suddenly, there was a very loud banging on the front door. Needless to say, everyone froze, not knowing who was behind the door. My dad got up to answer it. When he opened the door, there stood a young German soldier, machine gun over his shoulder. He asked to see me. I got up and went to the door. He was a young soldier I had gotten to know. He bent down, picked up half of a small pig he had acquired, and handed it over to me. He said, "This is for you and your family for Christmas." This was quite a surprise, to say the least. With a lot of reluctance, my dad allowed me to invite him into our house for dinner. My dad was very worried, as we were hiding a family of Jews, and the soldier might find out, which would cause a major problem. As it was, he had a short visit and left without incident. Even though we were enemies, both sides had families and celebrated Christmas. We left the politics outside for that moment. That night, around the dinner table, we shared stories, laughed, and for a brief moment, it felt like a normal Christmas.
This is the story of the time Mom and Dad were caught by the German Gestapo. After relocating the Allied soldier from Henderloh to Apeldoorn, covering a distance of 12 kilometers, 7.5 miles, by bicycle, Mom stayed overnight at Dad's place. The hiding spot for the soldier was not far from Dad's house, and it was part of an escape line. The next morning, Dad's dad provided Mom with more food stamps to be delivered to other hiding spots on her way back to Henderloh. Dad decided to accompany her on the return journey. During that overnight stay, something unexpected happened.
It was nighttime when the German soldiers pounded on the door of Meester Schut's house, their machine guns waving as they shouted for everyone to get out. I was sleeping upstairs at the time. I grabbed my pillow, which was actually the food stamp bag, wrapped it around my waist to maintain the illusion that I was pregnant, and ran downstairs with the others. Still half asleep and disoriented, we were pushed outside, lined up, and questioned. They were looking for the Schut men. The women and I were told to get back into the house and stay there. If they had found out that I was carrying the food stamps, I'm sure I would have been taken along with them. Wil Schut, my future husband, and his dad were taken away to the concentration camp in Apeldoorn, Camp Kazerne Willem III. It was a heart-wrenching moment, and fear gripped us all. I assumed that some other unfortunate Dutch soul had been caught and tortured into revealing the whereabouts of the Dutch underground resistance. At the camp, my dad was subjected to brutal torture. The Germans drove nails under his fingernails and stretched his back, trying to force him to reveal the whereabouts of the Allied soldiers. Despite the excruciating pain, he remained steadfast and did not betray his comrades.
For continued information of my dad's stay at Camp Kazerne, please view my YouTube video showing my dad's involvement with the Dutch underground resistance. Needless to say, Mom and Dad got married after the war. July 1, 1947. Dad passed away at 81 years old. Mom passed away at 97 years old. This story highlights the courage, resilience, and humanity that shine even in the darkest of times. Mom and Dad's incredible bravery and unwavering commitment to helping others will always be remembered. Their experiences remind us of the power of compassion, even in the face of adversity. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to learn about this incredible journey. Their legacy lives on through these stories, and we hope it inspires you to find strength and kindness in your own lives. Stay strong, stay kind, and never forget the power of hope.